Hey there, it's Joy Foster, founder of TechPixies and the host of the Sparkle and Thrive podcast. And we're doing a series on the challenges that women from ethnically diverse backgrounds face when returning to work. And I wanted to bring on some of the experts I know and have met through TechPixies to talk about this exact issue. So Padma Knowles, thank you for being here. You're definitely an expert on this topic, and I would love to explore this topic further with you.
Oh, thanks for having me. Nice to be back again, Joy.
Yes. So those of you who know Padma, she is a member of our TechPixies community. She is also a careers coach, and she has a lot of knowledge about what it takes to get a job. What I've learned, Padma, and I'm sure you have observed as well, is that it is challenging for a woman to get a job, but it is even more challenging for a woman from an ethnically diverse background, a sexual orientation that might be different from what people are traditionally used to, and also women from, who are older or lower socioeconomic or neurodiverse. So you add on all these things and it makes it even more complicated. But I want to talk to you specifically about ethnic diversity and how that really creates a barrier when returning to work and how people can overcome it. So what's your experience, and how have you helped people work through those challenges?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a huge issue, as we all know. And, we've all heard and seen the reports that, there's a lack of diversity within organizations, across globally, quite frankly. And we all know that. I think there was a report back in, it was an old one, but I'm sure the figures aren't that different now. It was from 2018 by Diversity UK. And it was the big four accounting firms in the UK. In the UK, then had 3,000 partners and only 11 were Black.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, that's and I don't know how much those figures have changed now, but I don't imagine there's been a huge amount. So there's a lot of work to be done, and yeah, you're absolutely right. The issues start even before that individual has even attempted to find work, So there's two challenges really with keeping your workforce diverse. One is attracting the talent, and two is retaining them. And ultimately, they're the biggest issues that any organisation faces. And for anyone from any of those backgrounds looking for work, it's a real challenge, because you want to work somewhere that feels inclusive, that you can progress and all of those things, but there's a lot of barriers in your way in the first instance. Even starting with your name. I can talk about this personally. My maiden name is Nalamili, which is a very Indian name, so I'm Padma Knowles, and I'd never even considered it. And then I got married and it became Knowles, and I didn't even realize at the beginning, but how many more responses I got. And it really, really confused me. And then it was actually, the more I talk about it, the more I hear these stories elsewhere as well.
Well, I know from the Oxford University Artificial Intelligence program that I did that recruitment has a lot of AI built into it now. And that what they have learned is that AI, if the testing data is biased, the results will be biased. Yes. And so when a lot of this recruitment software was built, it was built with bias. For example, Amazon built an AI tool, or used an AI tool that basically said only white males are good for this role, because all they had were white males that they input into the testing data, and they obviously scratched the program. What we've learned in the recruitment industry from the studying that I've done is that if you have an African last name or an Indian last name, an Asian last name, that it doesn't go through the recruitment software as well as a European or North American last name does. And I find that really, really fascinating, and also very sad, and we've got to change. We've obviously got to change the bias so that women are getting through, but also so that people with last names that are, very clearly Indian or African aren't having the challenges that people with North American and European names, don't have.
No, and that's it. And you've made a really valid point there with that, study, is that ultimately the people building the software need to be from a diverse talent pool, because otherwise you're going in with those biases. So it starts right at that level. And I know a lot of work's being done, but these are unseen obstacles and barriers that people from those communities face when simply trying to get a job.
So would you recommend that someone change their name just to get past that barrier, have a pseudonym? I mean, actors do it, right? Many actors do not have the original names that they started with. I'm pretty sure Angelina Jolie's name is not actually Angelina Jolie. Brad Pitt's name is not actually Brad Pitt. I think if we dig deeper, a lot of these actors the names that they have as a stage name are completely different. So why can't we do that in the career world? And would you recommend it?
I personally wouldn't do it, because in my mindset is, would I want to work for an organization that where I couldn't be my full self, and that my name is a huge part of that. So absolutely not for me, but it's a personal choice. It's a personal choice. I wouldn't go out recommending it, because I think it's ultimately what you're comfortable with. It's ultimately what you're comfortable with. And I think,
well, I like how Dame Stephanie Shirley did it, right?
Yes.
So I mean, and in a way, and here's what I'd say about this. Like, I'm not suggesting people change their names, but I'm not suggesting they don't change their names either, because I look at what Dame Stephanie was trying to accomplish, and she basically realized that unless she changed her name, she was not going to accomplish it.
Yes.
And her desire to accomplish her vision was more important to her than her name in that case. And so she changed her name to Steve. And she wrote all of her emails with Steve, and she's actually known now as Steve. She's not known as Stephanie. I mean, we call her Dame Stephanie Shirley, but she's really Dame Steve. And if you speak to her, you call her Steve. You don't call her Stephanie. And I find that fascinating, because she was forced to do it. She had no choice. And I think that's the challenge right now. We're living in a world where if you can make a name for yourself with your name, then you break through that barrier. It's whether or not people have that opportunity to hold on to their name and push forwards. I don't know. At one point, my maiden name was Fahrenkrog, which is, it's a few syllables and hard to spell. And at one point I thought, I'm just going to change my name to Farron, or change it to like Hamilton, so that it was like really easy for people, because no one could spell it, no one could say it. And, but you do realize that if you do make a name for yourself with the name that you've got, people do eventually learn it. And actually, if it is unique, it becomes something that's, really stands out for you. And so I think it's a personal choice for sure. But there are stories of people, not just in the acting world, but also in the business world, doing it to great effect. So it's something, I guess, that everyone has to consider or choose to do or choose not to do. If you choose not to change your name, what are some of the things that you can do to increase the chances that your CV are going to get through, or that your cover letter is going to get through?
I think ultimately it starts with your own screening process, because, and it's looking at things like the job spec. Look at the language used on that job description, look at the company's Glassdoor reviews, because you'll have ex-employees and current employees talking about their honest opinions, and it's anonymous, so it's very honest on there. And that's good as well, because there's lots of good things on there. It's not all negative at all. But what
was the website?
Glassdoor.
Oh, Glassdoor. And on Glassdoor, you get kind of anonymous feedback about people's roles.
Yeah, about it's an individual's experience. It could be, and there's often articles on there, or reviews, if you like, on there from employees talking about their experiences from a diversity and inclusion perspective. So it's a really useful tool, and I'd 100% look at it. I would say another big top tip is go and search for recruitment companies that focus on diverse talent.
So do you have a few that you can recommend? Because I think
there's lots. There's F1 Recruitment, which is if you're from a marketing PR comms background, they are they're market leaders in terms of what they do, and how they present a more diverse talent pool, and they build up strong relationships in those communities. There's BAME Consulting, which are a diversity and inclusion specialist, but recruitment company too. So there's lots. I mean,
I would love if we can get a list of these organizations to put into the show notes, because it's definitely something that I know when sort of the flexible working movement came into place in the last, I'd probably say the last 5 to 10 years, we've certainly seen a huge rise in flexible working pushing. And then obviously through the pandemic that's allowed that to be more prevalent. But also sort of that 9 to 3 or 2 to 3 days, these jobs that are really geared towards mothers. We've seen this sort of subculture of flexible working campaigners and, mother working campaigners, right? So people that are working on making that happen. This is what I'm really curious about now, is being able to find and share the links of organizations that are helping women from ethnically diverse backgrounds get work, so that we can point people in the right direction. So if you can give me a list, I would love to put that in the show notes for people.
Yeah. I'll come up with a list, but it's just highlights the diverse talent, whether male or female. They're recruitment agencies where they're renowned for the diverse talent pool candidates that they have, because they've attracted them and built those relationships, and ultimately they've got an increased chance of presenting a diverse shortlist to a business, and that business has come to them proactively because they want to do something about their diversity. They're not saying it's perfect, but they're starting, and that's often the conversation we have, is like, but just start. Everyone's got to start somewhere. So it's starting to have those conversations, and they are uncomfortable, but it's having them and starting that's the key thing. So yeah, that would be a top tip, definitely.
And what do you coach when you coach? Because I know you're a career coach and you've worked with a lot of the TechPixies actually as well, and helped quite a few of them get jobs. What do you find, so I find there's different stages. First stage is I'm putting tons of applications out and I'm not getting any interviews. And then they improve their CV, they improve their cover letter, and they then start getting interviews. Then the next challenge is people are getting interviews, but then they're not getting the job, right? So the first challenge is to get the interview. The second challenge is to get the job off the back of the interview. What are, if someone is stuck in one of those two places, obviously, improving the CV, improving the cover letter is one thing they can do to get past that first phase and into the interview. What happens when you've got someone from a ethnically diverse background who gets into an interview, but then is getting interview after interview after interview, but isn't getting the job? I think at some point they start to think, is this because of my race, or is this because of my skill set? Because they're getting into the interviews over and over again, and they've got the skill set for the jobs, but they're not making it to the next, to the actual job offer. And how do you coach someone through that challenge?
Ultimately, I think it starts with, because it could be that, let's be honest, it could be a factor. And I think it's got to come down to your questioning in the interview process as well. You can only control what you can control. And I think it's down to your questioning. So when you're going for an interview at an organisation, look at that diversity split. Look who's at the top. Look is there any diversity at the top? And if there isn't, ask the question. It's just being proactive, isn't it? And asking the question, going, look, what is your diversity split? What are we doing? What's your policy on this? How are you going about attracting these people? How are you going about retaining people? So have those conversations. And I think it starts with you asking the questions.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, coming in prepared with questions. There's always an opportunity in an interview where someone says, do you have any further questions? In fact, that's a big part of my story. When I was working with a recruiter, and they said, do you have any other questions before we put you forward for this job? And I said, yes, I would love to know the maternity leave policy. And they're like, you're out of here. And that was, that really was the death of my corporate career, because from that, they refused to work with me because I wanted to know. I wanted to have a career that could have a family, and I wanted to only work for companies that had that. I just read someone on LinkedIn, someone posted a testimonial about working for Xero, and they said that they were hired.
I saw that.
33 weeks pregnant.
Gorgeous.
Yeah. And then at 37 weeks, she said, I can't believe you guys hired me. And he goes, and her boss said, thank you for applying. And then they gave her 6 months maternity leave to be home with her family. And then they eased her back into work. And it was like the most glowing report, or the most glowing review I've ever seen. And of course, Xero, I love Xero. We use Xero, and I've seen many female leaders within Xero speak. So I would love to see this start happening for not just women, but women from diverse backgrounds. Any final tips? Because I know this is a flash in the pan, quick podcast that we're doing here, but any final tips anything that someone can hold on to when it's still not happening for them, but they know they've got the skills and they know they've got the talent, and but they also are bringing a culture add to the organization. What's your
if they're not getting the job, still after. Do you know what I'd do at that point? Because I think when you get to that point, you're feeling really desperate, and people have got to pay bills and all of those things. I get that. I would say find someone in your network that's senior, that you can ask them to mentor you. That's honestly, if I had my time again, not that you know what I mean? As in, I have having a mentor is key, whatever stage, I think. But I think if you're feeling like that, finding someone in your network that's, from an ethnic minority background, that inspires you, that's in a position of seniority, whatever it might be, reach out to them and ask them to be your mentor, or at least give you advice and guidance, because people want to help. People always want to help, especially when you're facing those challenges, because I've been there. So absolutely reach out and start talking to people, because you'll get a different perspective. You'll try something new. And when you try something new, you get different results. We know that. So yeah, that's what my top tip would be.
That is worth its weight in gold. Thank you so much, Padma. I have really enjoyed this flash in the pan.
It is flash in the pan.
Quick podcast, and I think our listeners will too. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
No worries. Thank you.